Privet Katila Wanenruski desu. Never again. This is the slogan that encapsulates the moral direction and lessons from the Holocaust and the general destruction of World War II. Never again. And, that's a very clear and very forceful message that carries with it a moral weight that most phrases don't hold. It's a moral message, a moral statement, if you will, which says that never again, so long as we remember the destruction of World War II, will we repeat the same mistakes and take the same courses of action that led to the deaths of tens of millions of people. Never again shall a group, either that be an ethnic group, a cultural group, a religious group, a linguistic group, a national group, all these things shall never be subject to displacement, replacement, dehumanization, and at the end of all those things, genocide. Within that moral message stands a message that shines bright that all moral and humanitarian nations try to aspire towards. And that message being that the peoples of the world have a right to exist in their own unique way, and that their self-determination is paramount. So this idea of preservation, the idea that we have the right to exist, and not just to exist, but have a home or a nation that we can identify with and take solace in, something that separates us from just an amorphous blob of humanity. This idea is the idea of identitarianism, and remembering the pledge of never again gives us the moral courage to stand up for this belief, that for all the peoples of the world. But sadly, we are backsliding. The peoples of European descent in Europe and all around the world are falling victim to a genocide our ancestors bled and died to prevent. Falling victim to a genocide that we were told shall never happen again. So let's rewind. What happened? So, in the 1940s, the world is in the biggest war in the history of mankind, and the German Reich is on the move, and they have a mission, an evil mission. And this mission is wrapped in lofty goals, masked in good phrases, and hell, even has some historical precedent to back them up. But with all this polishing of this deed that they're trying to accomplish, it's still an evil. The core of their actions are still evil. They plan on remaking the whole of Eastern Europe into their own image, a German image. The countless peoples of Eastern Europe, the Poles, the Russians, the Ukrainians, the Jews, they need to be forcefully wiped out, killed, displaced, dehumanized, and at the end of all that, replaced by the Germans. This event is known as the Holocaust, and we all see it as the most terrible crime in all of human history. When the Germans were finally defeated, we tried them for war crimes. And what exactly did we try them for? What we understood is that what they were doing was fundamentally wrong on a moral level. So let's say if Germans succeeded and wiped out the people of, say, Poland, and replaced them with Germans. Would Poland still be Polish? No, it would be German. A modern-day example of this actually happening is the city of Kaliningrad, which used to be one of the crown jewels, like a crown jewel city, like one of the best cities in the German Empire. It was actually called Königsberg. Now, but in the modern day, after World War II, only Russians live there now. They speak Russian and everything, and this was after they expelled all the Germans from the city. So, a question. Is Kaliningrad a German city? Not anymore, despite Germans living there for hundreds of years. And this is what would happen if the Germans succeed in World War II. And that is why when we had to stop them. And because if the plans they were trying to go out, wiping out the Polish population from their homeland, was seen as a fundamental moral evil. German propaganda dehumanized the Jews and the Eastern Europeans, told them that they were unworthy, that they have done bad things to Germany. And so with this, the Germans thought what they were doing was right in replacing the Poles, the Russians, and whatnot in their own homelands. Even with people who did not have a state, like Jews, the propaganda was focused to enable their genocide. Now, the Germans lost, and their crimes are real. The crimes were so immense and obscene that we vowed never to let this tragedy happen again. But yet, it is happening. We are slipping in our lessons of the past. The peoples of European descent are being replaced in their own homelands. Where shall the Swede go when his country isn't his anymore? Where shall the English girl roam in safety when the streets of her cities are filled with foreign influences and languages muttered that she can't understand? Where can the Italian take solace in when he's told he cannot take pride to the country that he is a part of? From America and Canada to Australia and New Zealand and to the heart of Europe itself, we are witnessing, if current trends continue, the largest genocide in human history, and we will have a stain on our collective humanity if we let it happen. Throughout our media, in our schools, in our books, on TV, and from the government to our universities, we hear the anti-white and anti-European dehumanization tactics. How we are privileged and don't deserve what we have. That we are the ones that were responsible for holding down all these different minority groups. That we are evil, that our whiteness means we must be guilty of the past. Telling us that we don't have a culture or identity, and that we must accept becoming strangers in our own land. We must accept that we can't get a job or get accepted to universities because we don't have the right skin color. We must be told that we have no culture, that we must keep forking over our hard-earned money to others in the form of welfare and other benefits for perceived injustices of the past. And it's no wonder that with critical race theory, with the association of guilt in our past, with the idea of cultural Marxism, multiculturalism, and globalism, that with all these things coming together, this is leading to the catastrophic results that we see in the modern day. What do we see? We see that the native peoples of Europe and their descendants are getting replaced in their own countries. When we compare interracial crimes such as murder and rape, there's a hugely disproportionate rate of violence against whites by non-whites than there is by whites on non-whites. It is much harder to get a job or get admitted to university because if you are a person of European descent. In fact, if you have too many whites in your group, you're not diverse enough and must accept more non-whites into your group or club or company or whatever. And this is prevalent not just through government action, but through private institutions. A recent example that just happened was from Goldman Sachs. They said they're not going to take up companies that have an overwhelmingly amount of white people on their boards of directors. So all these things are because of these dehumanization tactics, because of these tactics against the peoples of European descent all around the world. We see these results happening that are disproportionately affecting white people, and we see this before, and we know where this will lead. So after all this talk about diversity, all this talk about how race and that you don't matter, that there is no such thing as being European, that anyone could be European, and all this that you're privileged and that you need to accept being a minority, all these things, and you have to accept being guilty of the past. So all this is coming together. In 2.5 decades, whites will be a minority in America, and shortly thereafter in Canada. The peoples of Europe are being replaced by huge waves of people from Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. And it isn't stopping. So never again. We say that to ourselves. We say that we need to learn from the tragedy of the Holocaust. But where is that determination? We must take up this mantra and say firmly and with confidence, never again. That the peoples of Europe and their descendants have a right to their own nations that can express their own unique identities. Never again shall a child feel like they are a minority in his or her classroom. Never again shall our streets, towns, and even cities change into something foreign. Never again shall we walk down our streets and not be able to even understand the native spoken tongue of our homeland. Never again shall we be told that we must become minorities in our homeland. Never again shall we be denied a job or be able to go to college over our race. Never again shall we feel unsafe, unwelcome, and atomized in our very own homelands and nations. Never again. Aim high, wander on, from America with Russian love.